A victory for free speech. Folks, this whole video will amount to the following from this article. Protesters will no longer be allowed to shut down conservative expression. Quote, this landmark victory for free expression means UC Berkeley can no longer wantonly treat conservative students as second-class members of its community while ignoring the guaranteed protections of the First Amendment, unquote, according to Young America's Foundation. There you go, folks. That's this whole thing in a nutshell. But if you want, let's go back to the beginning of this article. Conservatives triumph over free speech hating Berkeley. Good news for a change, folks. The university has to pay Young America's Foundation $70,000 and end its unconstitutional campus speech policies. This is by Matthew Vadum, if I'm saying that correctly, December 7th, 2018, for Canada Free Press. Conservatives scored a major legal victory against UC Berkeley, which has agreed to compensate Young America's Foundation and Berkeley College Republicans for trampling the First Amendment rights of conservative speakers and students on its campus. Quote, Young America's Foundation is thrilled that after more than a year of UC Berkeley battling against the First Amendment rights of its own students, the university finally felt the heat and saw the light of their unconstitutional censorship, unquote, said YAF spokesman Spencer Brown. Quote, YAF's landmark victory for free expression, long squelched by Berkeley's scheming administrators who weaponize flawed policies to target conservatives, shows that the battle for freedom undertaken by YAF on campuses nationwide is a necessary one, unquote. The Trump administration previously weighed in on the side of the campus conservatives who argued UC Berkeley's restrictive policies violated First Amendment free speech rights and the equal protection and due process guarantees in the 14th Amendment. The U.S. Department of Justice filed a statement of interest on behalf of the two groups. Now, originally I was going to read out this statement of interest by the Department of Justice. However, next to this article, it's almost entirely redundant, so we don't have to do that, but you can, if you want, read that. Just scroll down, see the link below, and then link to that. But note that in that statement of interest, they do link to an op-ed, an opinion piece by the Associate Attorney General of the Department of Justice. She would be the third in command in that department. And it's very interesting. It was an opinion piece where she goes through various examples and gives her opinion of speakers who are shut down by campuses and other incidents like that. I do plan to do a video about that, reading that out, but I'm not sure if I have the time. At any rate, you can read that and access it by scrolling down and seeing the links below. The department, quote, will not stand by idly while public universities violate students' constitutional rights, unquote, Associate Attorney General Rachel Brand said at the time. UC Berkeley's hostility towards free speech is well established. The school appears in the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, annual list of the 10 worst colleges for free speech, which is quite ironic because Berkeley used to be the home of the free speech movement. See, there's the famous Berkeley Gate back in the 60s, and here is, well, not exactly UC Berkeley, but just down the street. That is what Berkeley has become. And it may be in part because, as I showed you in a former video, way back in the early 70s, it was targeted by cultural Marxists, people who called themselves cultural Marxists. No, it's not just made up by the alt-right. These are radical leftists who call themselves cultural Marxists. And as you can see in my book here from 1973, they do in fact say that they, amongst a few other places, targeted Berkeley for their communist agenda. Back to the article. Berkeley has a, quote, yellow light speech code rating, unquote, from FIRE because it restricts speech, denies students accused of misconduct the, quote, right to challenge fact finders, unquote, and denies students accused of sexual misconduct the right to counsel. Interesting. So just no fair hearings for people who are accused. That's wonderful. And you know what? I bet you my left arm, what this comes down to is men accused, not women accused. I noticed when I went to college myself, they avoid saying, well, this only applies to whites, or this only applies to men, or this only applies to heteros, but the implication is certainly there. Not written down in the course material, but in the discussion in the class, it is explicit. Continuing with the article, the administration at UC Berkeley only pretended to adhere to the First Amendment speech protections. When conservatives have been scheduled to speak on campus, the administration typically didn't forbid the appearances. Instead, it made the speeches inconvenient to the point of impossibility. For example, forcing students to use venues a mile off campus or at times when students couldn't attend. Berkeley also often required non-leftist groups to hand over thousands of dollars to defray security costs, a requirement not rigorously or consistently imposed on left-wing speakers or groups. And you know, folks, this, to be fair, this is because when you have a speaker who's not far left, they are called Nazis or whatever, and then people come to physically assault them, whereas it doesn't work the other way around. But when far lefties hold their speaking engagements, nobody comes to attack them. The article continues, an aggressive crackdown on non-leftist speech came after Berkeley officials, emboldened by an Antifa mob blocking a February 1st, 2017 campus appearance by firebrand Milo Yiannopoulos, decided to formalize viewpoint discrimination in the school's policy on speakers. The speech, which was sponsored by the David Horowitz Freedom Center, publisher of Front Page, itself never happened. Police stood down and allowed left-wing students and activists to no platform Yiannopoulos because they didn't like his views. Demonstrators caused $100,000 in damage to the campus and several times as much damage to the surrounding town. And this, folks, this was allowed by their policies. It was set in part by the mayor of Berkeley, along with the city council, like Chris Worthington here, for example. And these guys, I'm showing you right here, are friends with Antifa. Okay, granted, they took Yvette Felarca off their friends list after so much heat made it into the media, but they are still friends with top BAMN and Antifa members, still to this day. And this was allowed, and if you think I'm making this up, the mayor himself said, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, if we did something about it, they would have been worse.
Could have incited a more violent reaction from this small group of people. We've seen that happen in other communities where they respond with violence, not only to the police, but to nonviolent protesters in the crowd.
Okay, sound familiar? Yeah, they're doing that in Portland as well and other places. Remember in October, this was allowed in Portland because, oh, if we stepped in, they might get angry. And yes, the police stood and watched in both of these situations. There's the police watching Antifa mobs break the law. Here's the police watching Antifa mobs break the law. Okay? Back to the article. Court documents indicate UC Berkeley adopted an unwritten, quote, high-profile speaker policy, unquote, on March 1st, 2017 to impose restrictions on speaking engagements by conservative intellectuals like David Horowitz and Ann Coulter. By August 14, 2017, the university had published a written, quote, major events hosted by non-departmental users, unquote, policy to restrict a speech by conservative radio host Ben Shapiro. As a result, Shapiro was reportedly charged $9,000 to speak at UC Berkeley, a fee the school called, quote, lawful and appropriate, unquote. The threat of violence by Antifa at UC Berkeley also led to the cancellation of a planned on-campus premiere of a documentary film this writer executive produced, America Under Siege Antifa, during Yiannopoulos' planned free speech week at the school. But all of this leftist insanity will be changing, assuming the university honors the agreement that ended the year-old federal lawsuit. Under the terms of the out-of-court settlement, YAF attorney Harmeet K. Dhillon, if I'm saying that right, reached with UC Berkeley this past weekend, the university will pay Young America's Foundation $70,000, rescind its unconstitutional, quote, high-profile speaker policy, unquote, rescind its viewpoint discriminatory security fee policy, and abolish its heckler's veto. Protesters will no longer be allowed to shut down conservative expression. Quote, this landmark victory for free expression means UC Berkeley can no longer wantonly treat conservative students as second-class members of its community while ignoring the guaranteed protections of the First Amendment, unquote, according to YAF. Under the settlement's provisions, UC Berkeley will no longer be able to impose a 3 p.m. curfew on conservative speech, nor will it be able to ban advertisements for YAF-sponsored campus lectures or relegate conservative speakers to remote or inconvenient lecture halls on campus while giving leftist speakers access to preferred locations. Quote, further, the policy that allowed Berkeley administrators to charge conservative students $20,000 for security to host Ben Shapiro, an amount 3 times greater than the fee charged to leftist students to host liberal Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, is gone, unquote, according to YAF. Quote, YAF and UC Berkeley agreed to a fee schedule that treats all students equally. Unless students are handling money or serving alcohol at an event, the security fee will be zero, unquote. This is one of those rare legal cases in which conservatives received justice. Conservatives and other patriots should savor it. Now, I totally applaud this. I hope this is all accurate. This is good news. It's not that I'm conservative, it's that I care about the goddamn Constitution, stupid. Okay? If you think that I'm conservative or Republican just because I think that this free speech landmark happened and it's a good thing, you're a fucking moron. Alright, folks. Well, raise a glass, toast this decision, and, do a little celebration. Now, what do you think about this, folks? Leave us a comment below. Till next time, peace, love, freedom, equality, give me liberty, or give me death.